sew along, we're going to make a Jody bag. Jody is a small shoulder bag with a flap. It closes with a magnet. It has a zipper pocket and a rocket pocket. What is a rocket pocket? A rocket pocket has 4 card slots and a slip pocket. Just ideal if you want to go minimal. You can leave your wallet at home, just slip in the necessary cards and everything is ready. Jody also has an adjustable shoulder strap. Minimal hardware, just 1 magnet, 2 rectangular rings and 1 strap slider. We do need a zipper, but I do not consider a zipper hardware. I got already all my pieces, so I have 2 of the left, 2 of the right, not interfaced. I have 2 flap pieces. I interfaced them already. The interfacing is smaller than the exterior fabric. By the way, this is quilting cotton. That's why I use all the interfacing. If you would use cork or pleather or vinyl, then you do not need to interface. I have the foam for my flap. Remember, you need to cut 1/2 inch of the foam on the top. This is sew-in foam, so my foam is the same dimension as my flap. I have 2 woven interfacing that I'm going to use for the exterior, but only when the exterior has been sewn. Then I have 2 lining. They are already interfaced and the darts are already on them. I have my strap, my shoulder strap. We still need to attach them together. 2 colors. I have my strap connectors interfaced already. Everything for the pocket, the facing and the pocket lining. And then everything for the rocket pocket. We come back to this later. What do we need for the flap? Our 2 pieces, our foam, the magnet, two scrap pieces of woven interfacing and duct tape. Yes, duct tape. You will see why we need it. Take one of the pieces that will be the inside of your flap. Retrace from the pattern piece where the magnet has to be. Fuse a couple of scrap pieces on this part. Take the pattern piece again. And retrace the center. Take one of the discs of your magnet, place it in the center, and trace where the poles of your magnet will be. take your stitch ripper and make some very small holes where you drew the lines for the poles. It's better to make them a little bit smaller than too wide. Too wide is never good. Too small, you can always adjust. Take the male side of your magnet. Female, male. You took biology in class, I do not need to explain. From the outside towards the inside, you push the prongs through it. Take your disc, place it over the poles and fold poles towards the outside. This is attached, it will not go anywhere. Now take your duct tape and glue it over the magnet. This is not a delicate quilt, this is a handbag and we are going to use it, so it's better to secure everything we can. If you really don't want to use duct tape, you can fuse fusible fleece over that, but then you need to have this. Since fusible fleece was this was the only part where we needed it, I used duct tape. It works perfectly. Take the foam. This is sew-in foam, so I'm glue basting it. This is just very, very temporary. A little bit of glue is enough. Take the piece of flap that will be the outside and lay it right sides together with the inside of the flap. Then clip together. Double check. There's always stuff that can happen. On my machine I have a walking foot, built-in walking foot. My machine is a PFAF expression 3.5. Some of the other machines have also this system. If you don't have that, you will have to take care what you do with your foam. What I do is have my foam towards my dog feet, so on the bottom. So I have my fabric on top to my foot, my stitching foot, and my foam towards my dog feet. I am using very colorful thread. It's solely for the purpose of the video, so you can see what I am doing. At the start and the beginning, backstitch. trim the threads. And now trim the foam. I prefer to use scissors with a rounded point. Then I'm sure that I am not going to cut into my fabric. Cut as close to your stitch as possible. We have no use for foam in the seam allowance, but we needed to have the foam stitched in our stitch line. We did cut the top of our foam, so we don't have foam in the top ½ inch of our flap. I made sure that I backstitched at the start and the beginning. We're now going to trim our fabric. Trim to a 1/8 inch seam allowance. By not having interfacing nor foam in my seam allowance, my flap will lay a lot nicer. Why am I not cutting with my pinking shears? Because this is a round edge. I could do that, but I don't have interfacing here, and I cut my seam allowance to 1/8 inch. So that's small enough. Yeah, making sure it's just 1/8 inch. Open the flap at the top. We did not stitch that. And gently push everything towards the outside. With your finger, go over the seam. You can see now that you see my stitches. That is just because I have a thread that is very, very visible. Normally you will not see this if your thread is more or less coordinating. If you don't trust this, just stitch over a second time. So that's what I did, going over for a second time. And I also adjusted my threads. Ding. This is my flap. Looks very good. So now we're going to top stitch twice around the round edge and baste stitch once here. You don't have to actually baste stitch. You can just use one top stitching all around and then just a second one here. That's all. For the top stitching, I am going to use a better thread. I want to accommodate the videos as much as possible, but I do want to be able to use the bags later. So for the top stitching, I'm also changing my needle. I'm going to use a jeans needle, 18. I have a special stitch. It's called a triple stitch, and I'm going to use that for my top stitching. My needle can move position, so I position it as far right as possible, and I use my magnetic seam guide. And I use a starter stitch, a starter piece, sorry. That will prevent thread nests. I will lower my stitch speed. This will take time, so in the video I'm now going to press fast forward. This is the second row of stitches. The only reason to top stitch the second row is because I like it more. It's purely visible. You see a lot of bags that have been stitched once. Well, let's do something else and stitch twice. I am top stitching with the front side, the outside of my flap on the top. I know from experience that my stitches are much nicer on the top side than on the bobbin side. So I keep my bobbin side always for the inside or the wrong side or the lining side of my bags. This is a triple stitch, so I do not need to backstitch. This is my flap, done. For the strap connectors, we need two smaller pieces. You fold it in half to find the center. Then you fold the raw edges towards the center. You repeat and you press this very hard because we do need those folds. Then we're going to top stitch at 1/8 inch from the side. I'm top stitching, so with the triple stitch, so I do not need to backstitch because that happens automatically. find the half, find the middle, and fold the raw edges towards our crease. And this will be our strap connector. Use some glue, fabric glue of course, to glue one side already. Leave the other side open. We are going to attach our hardware here. Okay. Clip. Yeah. The side with the raw edges. Find the center. Make a little crease. And fold the two raw edges towards the center. So on the good side, we don't see any raw edges. On the good side, the right side, that's all the same. This is just temporary glue. It's not needed for anything else. The glue that I am using is Fabri-Tac Fabric Fix from Beacon. Then take your square rings. If one of the sides is not nice, then that is the inside, of course. Wrap it over your strap connector towards the crease we made and fold it towards the center. With another bit of glue. And those are ready. Set aside for the moment, we only need them in a second. We need one left, one right. Place them right sides together along the long straight edge. Clip or pin together and stitch with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I did change my needle for the strap connectors. I'm changing back to a normal Microtex needle. At least for me, a Microtex needle is my normal needle. That's my go-to needle. A Microtex needle has a very sharp point and is ideal for all the bag making and the quilting. Take the other left and right and do the same. Right sides together. Clip and stitch. I end with my starter piece. So now my starter piece has become an end piece. but it will help me start for the next time. Fold open and finger press your seam open. Do the same for the other. If you have a boning tool, this will help now. A boning tool or a hair marker, that's the same thing. We are pressing our seam open and we are going to fuse our interfacing. But the interfacing is not ready yet. We first need to cut our darts out of the interfacing. We can do it 2 layers at a time. Place your pattern piece on top of it. Trace the darts and cut. This will help in reducing bulk. Bulk is the enemy number 1 of bag making with a domestic machine. You never need bulk in any seam. So, take your exterior piece and fuse the interfacing on top of it. Make sure that your seam allowance is on both sides. It's pressed open like a butterfly. Yeah. You will see that your interfacing is not the same dimension as your exterior piece. That's on purpose, so don't worry here. Fuse a second layer of woven interfacing over your first if you're using quilting cotton. We're now going to make some beauty stitches. We stitched those two together. You will not see it really, but we are making a double stitch on either side of our seam. For that, I'm going to use my stitch in the ditch foot. The stitch in the ditch foot has a little knife pointer, a guide, that I can guide exactly on my seam. By keeping my eyes here in front of my foot, not where my needle is, I can keep that guide on my seam. My needle will always be where it wants to be, but it's that point that's the most important. I chain stitch the second piece, keeping my eyes on the guide. I'm top stitching, so I reduced my stitch speed. The other side. Or did you really want to see me stitch a straight line? We now need to stitch our darts. Take your exterior piece and trace your darts. Normally they should be the same as your interfacing, and they are. Here they are not. Okay, so what can we do? I can cut out a little bit of the interfacing, or I can change the position of my dart. Or I can start to learn to measure. So, where my interfacing is, there are my darts. How do I sew these little darts? So, we're going to fold right sides together, and the lines, the end lines of our darts need to match. Clip. We are going to press this. This is just temporarily. Now press for a better result. You can only press if you are using golden cotton. If you use vinyl or cork, don't try to press. I'm clipping, and now I'm going to sew from the end towards the point here. Do not clip your threads. Leave a long tail. I will explain later. Start with a starter piece. Lower your stitch length and lower your speed. And yet, I noticed the residue of the melting. So towards the top. Do not backstitch, but leave a long tail. Clip the starter piece and we'll repeat for a second dart. When you arrive at the top, leave a long tail, remove the starter piece because we need it again, and repeat this for all 8 darts. 4 on this piece and 4 on the other. So now we have stitched our 8 darts and we have all those long tails. Take a needle, take the 2 tails of the thread and make a knot. Not that hard that you are disforming your stitch, but just secure enough. Make 2 or 3 little knots. And then you can cut your threads shorter. And repeat this for all 8 darts. It's time consuming, I know, but this will give you the best results on the outside. And that's what we want to do. We want to spend just enough time on a piece so the result at the end will be the best possible. And now the video is going in fast forward. You do not want to see me repeating 8 times the same thing. For the front of the exterior, we still need to attach our magnet. It's harder to do it now, I forgot, but it's not impossible. That's the place. No, that was not good. I do it on the outside, that's better. It's in between the black lines. And if I do this way, it's even practical. There, some scraps of interfacing. The glue side down, of course. Measure again. Take the little disc, the dot in the middle, the 2 lines, make a little slit. Take the female side and push it through. Oops. Place a little disc. Fold outwards. Some duct tape. And now this piece is completely ready. Now that all the darts have been sewn, we need to press them to the correct direction. If for the outside we press all the darts towards the outside of our bag, and we press all the darts for the lining towards the inside, then we will not have bulk, because the darts from the outside are here and the darts from the lining are here. Remember, preventing bulk as much as possible. Place both layers, both outside layers, on top of each other, right sides together, and clip around. And then sew. But there is another option. I have a machine with a free arm. If your machine has no free arm, then perhaps you need to think about this. Attach the flap already now, before we have sewn this, then you can just sew a straight stitch. The next step, attaching the strap connectors, will be a little bit more tricky, but it will work. So it's up to you. Or you sew the flap now, or you do it like I will demonstrate. Just remember, if you don't have a free arm, you will need to think about this. When you attach the flap to the side with no magnet, and attach the flap with the male magnet on top. That's for later. We're now going to stitch this together. I'm going to align my darts. That's very important. That gives the best view on the outside. And I'm also going to align the 2 middle seams. that will be visible. And then of course we align the top, and everything else we can smooth out. So, stitch. Back stitch at the start and the end. And trim the seam allowance to 1/8 inch. At the end, you need to press your seam open. By trimming now, I only had 1/8 inch that I needed to press open. So I was scorching my fingers like hell. So don't be like me, just press your seam open now and only then trim your seam. Do what the pattern tells you to do, like otherwise you will scorch your fingers, and we all want to prevent that. Seam allowance open, only then trim. It's not really a problem, you can do it, but you will scorch your fingers because there is practically nothing to hold on to. Why do we need to press the seam open? We are going to attach our strap stabilizer. Strap stabilizer, you fuse it over your seam, centered, 1 inch down from the top. So this part we need to press the seam open. It's not for nothing that I write in a tutorial how to do it, because I know it very well, but it's not because you know something that you actually do it. But it's not for nothing that it is in the tutorial. I learned through mistakes. So I just hope that you don't make my mistakes. and then fuse the strap stabilizer over the seam on the inside. It's easier to do it when your bag is inside out or outside in, right side out. But then you can't see what I'm doing. So I have my piece of stabilizer. I place it on the inside and then I fuse. So it's now fused on both sides. When the stabilizer is fused, you take your connectors and you position them over your seams. The right position is that your square ring is with the metal right on top of the raw edge of your bag. This is the correct position. It's not possible to clip here, it's too thick to pin, so I'm going to use glue. We are going to stitch, so this is just temporary. If you don't think your machine can handle this, then please use rivets. Rivets are so handy if you have a domestic machine. This is just quilting cotton, but it is already 3 layers, because 2 layers of interfacing, 1 layer of cotton, and then our strap is 2 layers of cotton, 1, 2, 3, 4 layers of cotton and 4 layers of interfacing. So we have already a lot of layers. That's there. The other side. That's one of the benefits of Fabri-Tac. It dries very, very quickly. So, on top of the seam, centered, and the top of the metal at the top of the raw edge. Now we are going to stitch the connector to our fabric. How do we do this? We sew a box and then we close it with an X. Here it will be very tricky to sew because we are very close to the metal. That's one side attached. If the stabilizer is not really correctly in the middle, that's not important. Where we were stitching, that was stabilized. That's the most important. We now need to attach our flap to our bag. The flap will close with a magnet. So the magnet needs to be on top of the other magnet. So if we close this already, then we know that the magnet will be the front. We are attaching the flap to the back side. So when the flap is closed, open your flap and place your flap on top of your bag. So this is how it has to be. This is the front part. This is the inside part. Turn your bag, so the magnet is now facing down, and turn your flap. Now, fold your flap back. So now the back side, the outside part of your flap is touching the right side of the back side of your purse. Place the center of the flap on the center mark of your outside. And the center mark is our seam line. And this stitch the flap to the outside of your bag. If you can, make your machine a free arm. And baste stitch. We did trim the foam, so we don't have foam in our seam. And ready, up to the next step. We're now going to make the rocket pocket. What do we need? 5 pieces of stabilizer, our 2 side pieces, the top of our pocket, 4 card slots, 2 pieces of lining and 1 back. We can fuse already 1 piece of lining on our back. Make sure your interfacing is not inside your seam allowance. Our seam allowance is 1. The 4 card pockets, fold them in half. So we have our fold on this side. So I guess this is folding widthwise. I'm going to place them this way. It's visually more appealing. And now I need to press this. I need to press the fold. Then take 1 stabilizer piece, take 1 folded card slot, fold open, and place your stabilizer against the fold we just made. And fuse in place. And repeat for all 4. Then the card slot or the top piece, we need to fuse the stabilizer 1/4 inch from the top. Then it's drawing time. On the top piece, we draw a line 5/8 inch down. On 3 of the card pieces, I draw a line 3/8" down. Bulk. On 3 of the card pieces, we draw a line 1 inch from the bottom. On 3 of those. This will be a stitching line. On the 4th piece, we open it up and we draw a line 1 inch from the bottom. This will also be the stitching line. This will be our top piece, and we do not want to see a stitching line. That's why we stitch on the inside of the pocket. Now we're going to top stitch our 4 card slots. Only if you are brave enough, you use a contrasting thread. I'm now doing this for the sake of the video. I would not use a contrasting thread here. Black is brave enough. This is my bottom piece. These are the three pieces for this line, and this is my top piece. I place 1 piece of these on top of the line I drew and pin or clip in place. Clips will work better. Now stitch a normal stitch line here. We will never see that line again. Take your second card slot, place it on top of the markings, and stitch on the bottom line. Third, place on top of the markings, and stitch on the line. the last card pocket, place on the markings, clip in place, and stitch on the line. Now we are going to braid our seams. Lift the top layer up and trim your seam allowance more or less to 1/8, then another layer to 1/4, another layer to 3/8, and so on. The rest is okay. Now baste stitch the sides of the pockets. It's easier if you do it from the bottom on towards the top, so this will not happen. For the other side, that would be difficult, but we can flip our piece so it is wrong side up, and then we can do the same. Now, place the side piece on the side, that's why it's called a side piece, and stitch with 1/4 inch seam allowance. Repeat for the other side. If your piece is smaller, no problem. Just align it at the top and we will trim later on the bottom. Make equal on the bottom. And press the sides to the side. Now we can use our last piece of interfacing and fuse it centered on this piece. place the card pocket backing right sides together on top on the cards and clip together. Since we trimmed a little from the sides, the backing is now a little bit too high. No problem, just trim it. It's important to know where the bottom of our pocket is. That is bottom. So this is our top. We are going to close this in a special way. We start here, 1/4 inch in. Then we sew completely to the end. Let's first do that. Start with a stitch length that is a lot smaller than your normal stitch length. And also start with a starter piece. Pivot and sew towards the end. I'm now going to fold the complete seam allowance over my stitch. I'm using black thread for the bobbin, so that's not handy for the video. You will see it in the next step. Fold over the seam and now stitch this side with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Stitch completely towards the end. Here you can now see my stitch. On this corner we do the same. We fold the seam towards the center over our stitch. And here we do the same. We're going stitch close to the top what I was thinking, a 1/4 inch, that's not okay for my interfacing. I was stitching at 3/8, so I need to rip. Because at the top, it's very important that you only have the 1/4 inch. Remember, we measured 5/8 of an inch for the top piece, and we started placing our card pockets at that 5/8. Since we do need 3/8 inch on top of each card pocket, it's important that here I only have 1/4. For the sides, it's less important. I'm not going to redo them, but just stitch everything with a 1/4 inch. I'm leaving this mistake in the video so you can see what you can do if it would happen to you. To make sure I'm not mistaken again, I'm going to draw a line. Since I did trim my piece, my interfacing is a bit too long, so I'm going to trim the interfacing as well. You know the drill, the less bulk in your seams, the better. Try to avoid bulk wherever possible. So, fold over the seam. A lot better. Since I did stitch 3/8 here, I'm also going to do 3/8 here. Normally it's just 1/4, but it needs to be even. But fold down your seam. Starter piece will prevent threadness. Last, I had 3/8 here, so I do 3/8 here. I try, but and towards the end, or the edge. We do not have to trim our seam allowance, but we can. Remember, the less bulk, the better. You cannot trim all the seam allowance, but what is possible, it's better to remove it. Our corners will be fine already with the trick we used by folding over the seam allowance. This is a slip pocket with card pockets on the front. We leave it open because we need to turn it. The opening in the bottom will help turning it. Bringing out the corners neatly is easier with the trick we used. I have a lot of loose threads here because I needed to unpick. I am using a wooden chopstick. You use whatever you want as long as it's pointy and blunt. A knitting needle is fine too. I don't knit, so I don't have that. But we do have wooden chopsticks. In case you wonder, I only use them for sewing, not for eating Chinese. Our corners are a lot less weak like this because we did not trim them very close to the seam. So we are able to push more. We want nice corners. Bottom of the bag will fold in practically automatically because we have sewn a little bit of the seam allowance already. So do not trim the seam allowance on the bottom. Very important. Never trim the seam allowance from a turning hole. This was our turning hole. We are going to stitch this pocket, so the opening will be closed while stitching, but I always use a little glue to temporarily close it. It will help our stitching later, or at least that's what I think. And press. Our rocket pocket is ready. So now we're going to attach it to our lining. Measure from the straight top 1.5 inches. Fold the lining in half to find the center. From pocket in half to find the center and place it right on the line. Pin in place. This looks like a good spot. We're now going to top stitch, edge stitch the pocket. We start at the top with a lock stitch. We go to the bottom. Here we do a pivot, the complete bottom, a pivot, go up, and there we do another lock stitch. My machine has an automatic lock stitch. That's handy. That's not what I wanted. That's the problem with automatic things, that it goes automatic. So this is the result. Our rocket pocket attached to the lining. We still need to reinforce the corners of our pocket. This is a slip pocket, so the corners will have to endure a lot of stress. We can do this with rivets, or we can do this with a little slant stitch. I'm now going to do the slant stitch. You can see my slant stitches here, and this will reinforce our pocket. When we grab into the pocket, it now has a lot more strength. Here we have the card slots. This is an ideal pocket if you want to carry less weight when you're traveling or whenever, because here you can have your essentials in it and you don't have to carry a wallet. The Jody bag gets turned completely through the zipper pocket, so we will leave the bottom of the zipper pocket open. What do you need? The two zipper linings and the zipper, of course, the zipper facing and the lining where we will place the zipper pocket in. Start with one zipper pocket F and lay it in front of you, right side up. If your fabric is directional, then make sure that the top of your fabric is here, is at the bottom. So if you have little guys, they are facing like that. Take your zipper and place it aligned with the bottom. My zipper is way longer than it should be. Why is that? I buy my zippers in bulk. This is the size that will always work for me in whatever project I am stitching at that point. So this is what I do. Black you can always use. I will reuse this piece of the zipper tape. I did buy loose zipper pulls. First we are attaching this and attach it with a 1/8 inch baste stitch. If you do not trust yourself, you can use double-sided tape. The normal Washaway Grits double-sided tape. This works perfect when you are attaching zippers. Only do what I did when you know what you're doing if this is not your first time. What you should not do is use pins. Pins and zippers, in my opinion, they do not go together. Fold away the fabric from the zipper. And finger press. So the wrong side is now up and the top side is on top. Our zipper pull is still on the left and our zipper teeth are visible here. On this side they are not visible. Why is my zipper pull on the left? Because I'm right-handed. I think most right-handed people like to open the zipper from the left to the right. If you are left-handed, then think what you would prefer. If you would prefer for your bag to be the zipper opening from the right to the left, then do this for your bag. That's the benefit of making a custom bag. You can do it exactly like you want. So, right-handed from left to right, left-handed from right to left. Or whatever you choose. It's your bag. It's your customer. Take the second piece of zipper pocket F. Now the top side is facing top. So you will see the directional print correctly like it should. Place your zipper panel from before right on top. So the sides of both panels are aligning. You can pin. You can use double-sided tape. You can do whatever you want. It's your bag. And we are now going to attach the zipper with a 1/8 inch seam allowance. I know that 1/8 inch is way smaller than normal. Trust me. This is just a preparation. We are going to stitch another time. So that's that. Fold your top fabric that was completely on the bottom, open and finger press. We're now going to trim our zipper. Do not forget to place your zipper pull inside your fabric allowance. This is the fabric, so there needs to be your zipper pull. Otherwise, you will end up with a zipper pull here and only zipper tape here. You do not want that. Here we need to zigzag stitch this close. I recently found something else. It's called Bondic. Bondic is a kind of glue that only works when it is lighted with ultraviolet light. So this is the glue. I add it here. The only thing I have to do is push a little here. I close my tube. I illuminate the ultraviolet, close my zipper, and I point to it. Only pointing. I don't do anything else. And it's closed. Isn't that fun? If you don't happen to have Bondic, just zigzag stitch or whip stitch with your needle. I'm using my spare scissors that I only use for work like this. Just to be sure my zipper pull will not fall off here, I use a little Bondic. This is a novelty, you do not need this in your sewing room. But I must confess, it's very handy. And perhaps you have it already in the house. This is preparation 1. Now the zipper facing. You retrace all the lines you see in the pattern. There are multiple ways to do this. This is my way. We only need this box to stitch on and those lines to cut on. By tracing it this way, I know exactly what I'm doing. My zipper box is 1 inch smaller, or 1 1/4 inch smaller than my zipper taping. My triangles are 1/2 inch and my box itself is 3/8 inch high. That's the only thing that I need to know. How wide it is, it's so far less important than the height and the cutting lines. Then take your lining, measure 1 inch down on the right side, fold in half so you know where the center is. That's just for the video's sake that I'm doing this. Fold your zipper facing in half so you know where the center is. And then place your zipper facing center and center, and the top of the zipper facing aligned with the 1 inch line. And pin in place. We're now going to stitch on the box. Start at the corner, stitch around, stop here, pivot, stitch there, stop, pivot, go there, stop, pivot, go back and lock stitch. I always take a stitch that is a tad smaller than my normal stitch length. My normal stitch length is 2.5, so I normally opt for 1.5 or 2. So right up in a corner, up, pivot, down, up, pivot, down, I can now remove my pins already. Up, pivot, down, back stitch, and our box is made. Trim the threads, and now we need to cut open our box. Different ways to do this. This is just one way. Fold your lining in half and give a starter cut. Open up, and now you know what you're doing. We cut on the center line till we arrive at the point of the triangle, and then we cut till the very last thread of the box. Do not cut through the stitch line, but cut until you have the very last thread of fabric. On the other side we do the same. You cut on the line till the point of the triangle, Then you go towards the top of the base of the triangle to the very last thread of your zipper box. Here you do the same till the very last thread of your zipper box. That's it. Then double-sided tape. Place it on the bottom and on the top of your zipper facing, and do not go till the very end, and just start where my zipper box is. That will facilitate stitching the lining later. Good, that's done. Now refold your fabric right on the stitch line. Do the same on the short sides. Nice zipper boxes always take a lot of preparation. Turn your fabric wrong side up and pull your zipper facing towards the wrong side of your lining. So now your box will be a box. Now the double-sided tape comes in handy. From one side, remove the backing. If it's not working, with your nail, go over the paper, and then it will be easier to remove the backing. From now on, this will glue. This will stay. So we need to make sure we are folding correctly. When you are folding back your zipper facing, you will see where your seam is. There you make a fold and you press the double-sided tape. This will not come loose anymore. And you can continue doing this. And that's the benefit of using the double-sided tape here, because you do not need to keep this flat. And press. Press the hell out of it so it lays as flat can be. Now it's time to attach our zipper pocket to our lining. Our lining is right side up. Our zipper pocket is wrong side up. The zipper pull is still opening, or the zipper is opening from the left to the right. Leave it now open for half. Place your zipper lining on your table and place your lining on top of the zipper. If you turn it, then your zipper lining should be the same distance as your zipper facing. Then you know exactly that it is in the middle. I find that a little less important than the distance between the edge of my zipper box and my teeth. I find that the amount of zipper tape here and the amount of zipper tape here needs to be exact. Then you have the best quality of work, in my opinion. To attach this zipper here, you can use glue, you can use double-sided tape, you can use whatever you are comfortable with. Make sure you're using double-sided tape that you can sew through. Not all double-sided tape is meant for a domestic machine, and some of them will glue up your needle. If it happens to you, it's not your fault, it's the double-sided tape. My double-sided tape has a tendency to do that. I buy my double-sided tape in China, and it's extremely cheap there. The main purpose of that tape is not for sewing, but it is to repair cell phones. And cell phones, they need to stick. So it's logical that it's a very heavy glue. But I use it primarily for my straps, and there it's a lot less important. What you need to do is make sure that you're taping the pieces of fabric that you will not stitch through. That's why I placed the tape at the very, very end here. Because I know I am not going to stitch through there. But the normal grits double-sided tape, the one that's sold in quilting shops and in other sewing related places, that's no problem at all. But did you notice that everything where they place the word quilt is a lot more expensive than all the other stuff? It's the same like pink. Make something in pink and you can ask double the price. No, not for me. Not that I do not like pink, but I'm not going to pay double the price. So this is how my pocket is attached. I'm now going to sew this zipper box in a special way. Fold the bottom layer towards the top and pin in place. So the two layers of fabric are pointing towards the top. We're now going to stitch from this corner with one lock stitch, just one, towards this corner. And here we are doing one lock stitch, one. I can only advise use for this kind of lining black thread. So I am going to change my thread to black, even if this is a video. I do want to be able to use my bags later. Then turn your piece, remove your needles, keep them, or remove your pins. Fold the bottom layer of fabric down, finger press. This one is stitched, attached and finished, and we don't see any stitching on the inside. We don't see any stitching nor loose zipper tape. This is just the most perfect inside of a bag, of a zipper pocket. Fold your upper layer down completely and pin in place through all the 3 layers of fabric. We are now going to stitch. We are now going to stitch from the last lock stitch we made. With 1 lock stitch, we stitch up to here, 1 lock stitch, pivot, turn completely to there, pivot, lock stitch here, just 1. So we started with 1 lock stitch here and 1 lock stitch here, and then now we are starting with 1 lock stitch here and 1 lock stitch here. That's why it's important you take the same color thread as your fabric. Remove your pins. Open your zipper. We do not need to open the zipper now, but it's just a good reminder, because later when we are attaching the lining to the exterior, our zipper needs to be open. And this is just one more chance to not forget that you have to open your zipper. The back side of our pocket. Our pocket is still completely open on the bottom and on the sides. Both layers should be the same length. If they are not, and they will not be, then we make them the same length. So cut away the difference. Now stitch the sides close. I use a stitch that's a combination between a straight stitch and a zigzag stitch. It's more or less what your serger would do. I prefer that. It's not needed at all. That's just what I do. Fold away the lining fabric away, so we will not stitch through them. Once you know what you're doing, you don't use pins anymore. So this is how it is. You fold away your fabric and then you stitch your pockets close from the top of the zipper facing through the little triangle here towards the bottom. Remove the pins. And now, to make our work easier later, we fold over 1/4 of an inch of the bottom of the lining. We're going to top stitch, edge stitch or slip stitch the bottom of this pocket. When we do this refolding now, the work later will be a lot easier. Stitching your first pocket is not something you can do in 3 minutes. Later you can skip all the steps you think are not needed anymore, but for your first, do it like I suggest. If you have sewn more bags from me, you know that there is a method to my madness. Oops, and press. Here only press, do not use glue. Believe me, I tried. Of course I tried. I'm not going to tell you to do something that I didn't test. So, and our zipper pocket is done. The only thing we need to do now is make our darts. Press on the point, align both edges of our dart piece, start with a starter piece, lower your stitch length, what not to do. I am lucky because when I did press the scissors on my machine, they do leave a rather long tail. They do not make a lock stitch or something, so I was lucky here. But this is not what you should do. What you should do: pinch the top, align the both sides where we need to end, start with the starter piece, lower your stitch length, sew past the fabric, leave a long tail, snip, snip, and done. The second one: pinch your darts, align the both edges, start with the starter piece, lower your stitch length, sew past the point, leave a long tail, snip, snip, and start again. Pinch, align, stitch, leave a long tail, snip, snip. Perfect. Now make the little knots. Snap the tails. It's not really needed, but when people will open your bag, then they will see that you also took care of the inside. Now press the darts towards the inside of your work. For the outside, we press the darts towards the outside. For the lining or the inside of your bag, you press the darts towards the inside. That's a nice reminder. You do not have to do that, but you do have to press the darts the opposite way. And ready. For this lining, we still need to make the darts. The darts, you know the drill by now. From the top of the point, and then you align both lines. If your fabric allows, press or use a hero marker. We're now going to stitch from the end towards the top of the dart, and we start with the starter piece. When we arrive at the end, just leave a long tail and cut and repeat. Fold at the top, align the two lines, start with the starter pin, do not backstitch at the start and the end. So behind the top, leave a long tail. I'm going to make a knot in those long tails later. So again, pinch at the top, fold the two lines so they align. Start with the starter piece, lower your stitch length. Do not backstitch at the start and the end. So behind the top, leave a long tail. I'm going to make a knot in those long tails later. So again, pinch at the top, fold two lines so they align. Start with the starter piece. My stitch length is still lower or smaller. Leave a long tail. And one last. Pinch at the point, fold in half, align the lines. By now I know how far I need to go. Stitch behind the point, leave a long tail, snip, snip. So this is what we end up with. We have a lot of long tails. Make a knot. And make the thread smaller. When you make the knot, do not try to get all the threads to this point. We do this so there's less visual on the right side of our fabric. So again, I'm using these colors only for video's sake. I would really advise you to use colors that are more suitable for your project. And the last one. it's ready. So for the lining, we are pressing all the darts towards the inside. Both sides of our lining are now done, so we can attach them. Align the darts. Then align the top. On the other side, everything seems okay as well. And then sew with a 3/8" seam allowance. I did already make the lining smaller, so you do not need to accommodate to have your lining smaller, so it would fit better into your bag. You can just stitch around with 3/8" seam allowance. Here the darts are pointing towards my foot, so I need to take extra care that they are going in the right direction. So the lining is now sewn together. We are first going to press our seams open. Why first press and then trim? Because now I have a serious amount of seam allowance to pick, to touch, to feel, to grab. If I would only do it after trimming, then I would certainly scorch my hands. It's especially important at the top. The bottom, less important, still important, but less important. If you have a tailor's ham, this is ideal moment to use it. I just moved house and mine is somewhere. At this point, I don't know where. Still need to find it. And now we can trim the seam allowance. About 1/8. Let's have a look. Yeah, this looks like what I intended. So we can now finish our bag. The lining needs to be the right side out. Open the zipper, very important. We are going to turn the bag through the zipper opening on the bottom. Next check. The exterior, our magnets are attached. Our strap connectors are attached and the exterior bag is wrong side out. The flap will be on the inside. So this is what we end up with. If you want to cut now those extra things, you can. They did already their purpose. Why did I make them extra big? Because then you have more wiggle room. Okay. The side where the flap is, that will be the side that will be against your body. So you have to decide if you want your zipper pocket towards your body or the card pockets. I prefer the card pockets, but it's completely up to you. Put your lining inside, or place your lining inside your exterior. And align the side seams. Here, start clipping, but I'm going to staple baste. This is my preferred method for the end of a bag. This is going nowhere anymore. The center of the lining, we align it with the center of the exterior. And the center of the flap, we align it with the center of the lining. So now we have 4 points where we aligned the lining. In between, we just try to have everything together. Even if you think that something is bigger or smaller than something else, it's not. So just stretch and find the center. So that's done. Make sure the rectangular rings are pointing towards the bottom. And we are now going to stitch around with 3/8 inch seam allowance. We can turn the back through the bottom of our zipper pocket. I'm stitching around at 3/8. It doesn't matter where I start. I always do a double round. That's done. Now trim our seam to 1/8 inch. While we are doing that, we are also removing our staples, so they don't bother. By using staples, I did not have to deal with all the clips, and I could just stitch around. Almost done. Go towards the inside, find your pocket, grab inside your pocket and turn around your complete bag. Push this temporarily towards inside. Check everything. Now is still the time to do alterations. Going to push the lining inside exterior. Does this look alright? This does look like a bag. Okay, now some final pressing. I'm grabbing my lining again here. And I'm going to press this stitch, this line. That will make our work in the next step easier. course you can only do this when you use quilting cutter. So. This looked okay. We're now going to close the bottom of our zipper pocket. You can slip stitch, or you can just use a very, very tight edge stitch. This is the bottom of an inside pocket. Nobody will ever see this. Just make sure everything is nicely aligned. And use your closest edge stitch as possible. Check if your pocket is closed. No holes. Now you can still change it. No, that's just perfect. Close the zipper. And push the lining inside your exterior. This time to stay there. With your hands over all the seams, roll them a little bit over your fingers so everything is really nicely in the back. Now we fold on the edge. If you get your exterior a tiny fraction more than your lining, then you will not see part of your lining on your seam. It's really even less than 1/32 of an inch, just a fraction. Here we have 4 seams over each other. My favorite tool is my flat nose pliers. By pressing them, I will damage the fibers, and by damaging the fibers here, where I have too many layers of fabric, my bulk will go to a minimum. And that's what we want, minimize bulk. as well. Those are the same pliers that I use for all my key fobs. Okay, now we need to top stitch this. This will be very visible, so take care. I always start at one corner of the flap. That will be the less visible. We have our connectors attached, so you don't have a lot of wiggle room here. When you arrive at the next connector, take extra care, and then we need to top stitch over the flap. Or we are stitching on the back, not on the flap, but at the place where the flap is. And here I'm going to do a double round. I'm now using my triple stitch. For the first round I did not use it because I first wanted to have it secured. The benefit of a triple stitch is I do not need to have lock stitch because the triple stitch on sich is already a lock stitch. Okay, where is my threads? It was playing hide and seek. Like half of your material is always playing hide and seek. Perfect. Now I'm going to press the bottom of my bag, so this is also nicer. This is my temporary pressing ham. Just a towel. But it does what it has to do. To make our long strap, we need shorter straps. This is just so you do not have to buy 1.5 yards of fabric, because we can make our own long strap These were the longest pieces that I could find. For my accent piece I have a longer piece, so I can make it just with two pieces. We're now going to make a long strap out of shorter straps. We do this the bias way. Why is it called like this? Because you will sew bias the same way. We do not need to cut our fabric on the bias way, diagonally, because we are not going to use it on a round piece. So we do not need to stretch. What you do is you place one piece right side up, the other piece right side down. One piece is horizontally, the other is vertically, and you place them almost corners the same. What I do is 1/8 inch on the right and 1/8 inch on the bottom. I let it overhang. Take a pin and pin in place. What we now need to do is draw a line from this corner where the two pieces cross to this corner where again the two pieces cross. So we have a little triangle left. On this line we stitch. That's one. Then we cut the triangle away and a 1/4 inch seam allowance, or something between 1/4 and 1/8. And then you fold the fabric down. If we now press our seam open, we have a long strip with only here a seam. The seam goes from here to there, so if we fold it, there will never be two seams at the same spot. So we prevent bulk. The strip is not long enough yet, so and repeat. This line does not need to be exact, but this needs to be exact, and here. Oh, something happened here. this looks okay. We can now trim. Finger press the seam open. So this is one color done. For the second color, I was able to use longer strips, so I only need to attach 2 strips. By not using my normal scissors to cut the threads, I just save my scissors from going dull in just one little spot. Those snap thread or thread cutters, they are very cheap, at least way cheaper than your good scissors. So save your scissors. Press the seam open. And that one is done as well. So for these straps, we need straps that are in total 56 inches long. So I need 56 on one side, 56 on the other side. Since I want 2 inches from one color on the other side, I need to have from one color 54 inches and from the other color 58 inches. It's up to you what color you're going to choose. I'm going to take this as my base color, so I need 54 inches, and for my contrast color I take this. So the contrast color will be on top, will be more visible. I place them right sides together and sew them with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Here I don't sew at the bias. It's possible, I just don't do it. So press the seam open here. So now those two are attached, and then I'm going to measure 54 inches from both, because the shortest needs to be 54 inches. I got, and then the other I make 58. We now need to interface this long strap. Take your long straps of interfacing. You will never have enough or long enough. It's really not important. The only thing that is important is that you start at least 1/4 inch away from the end. Make sure that your seams are perfectly open. Your interfacing is not as tall as your fabric. That's on purpose. When one piece of interfacing ends, you take another piece and you butt the ends together. And nobody will be any the wiser. It's important, if you butt two pieces together, that you try to not have them here, where the two fabrics are meeting. If it would happen like this, just cut it here. So we now just produced one long strap in two colors. We're now going to fold the strap in half. We need that center crease. So do not press, just finger press. So, we now have the center crease. We now need to fold the raw edges towards the center. And this we can press. Since I have not the patience to do that, I use my cell phone glue. It's called cell phone glue or cell phone tape because you normally repair cell phones with it. I know. So, put a piece of the tape in the center. You can do this with double-sided tape. The normal you usually use for sewing. Absolutely no problem. Here in Belgium it's just a lot more expensive, so that's why I don't do that. So, start at the beginning. And fold the raw edges towards the center. I can still see my center crease. I'm going to do that the complete length and then the opposite. There will be fast forward. You do not have to see me do this. So we just finished taping our long strap. It's just long. The two ends are still open. What do? We thread our strap adjuster, our tri-glide, through the strap. You do this by going under here. Then you move this away and you go under the other thing. So our strap is just over the middle pole. Even if your pole is not moving, it's just still a strap adjuster. Now we need to make sure our strap lays the same at this end and on the other hand. We can see the raw edges here. Make sure the strap does not curl up. And here we have the raw edges on the other side. We need to sew it so the two ends together, right sides together, with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Press the seam open. And then fold the rest of the strap to the inside. this is still on the outside and this is on the inside. If we now fold all our raw edges towards each other, everything is just perfect. On this side I start with 1 inch of the longer strap. Then clip together every so often. You will see that on the other hand, where our strap glide is, you also end up with 1 inch of the longer strap. This will be the outside. So this is the top of our fabric. We start sewing here as close to the strap glide as possible. Some machines you will have to have 3/8 of an inch, other machines you can end up closer. That's up to you. If you have to start too far, you can add a rivet. It's really not that important. Just start here, sew all the way up, come back, and then we'll see each other again. And here I use a little trick. I have 2 big magnetic guides that I position 1 inch from each other. So that is the exact width of my strap. I don't have an electronic machine. This is just a normal domestic machine, so I can do this. This way, stitching will be far more equal. We're almost back where we started. And now I need to remove my magnets. I also have my hum jumper, the Gina Magique. It will help me coming over the strap glider. It's very important that your presser foot is always horizontal. If I would now sew through, then my presser foot would tilt over my dry glide. That's not good. By adding some thickness on the back side and adding the strap glide on the front, my presser foot is horizontal. this is as close as I can go to my drag light. Here I need some help on the other side. Turn here. Now I need help on the front. And we are ready. So I ended where I started, and I was able to sew very close to my drag light, but only with the help of my hum jumper. So this is one very long strap. We can now attach our strap. We are almost ready. The black is the outside of my strap. That's my contrast fabric. That's what you will see. So, first you decide where you want the strap glider, the adjuster, to be. Do you want it on the left or on the right? I opt for this side, but there is a choice you can make. Place the strap with the exterior fabric on the top. So the fabric that will be on the inside of your strap. The strap adjuster is here. Then place the end of your strap inside your rectangular ring while your flap is visible. Then you end up with this. Make sure nothing is twisted. Then, with the exterior part of the strap visible, slot it under the first end of your adjuster, over the middle pole and under the top pole. I think this looks what you are expecting. Make sure nothing is twisted. On the other side, you go from the outside, you twist it under your rectangular ring, and then up. Just 1 inch. You can stitch across here, you can use rivets, you can use whatever you want. Since you see now very well that my presser foot is not horizontal, I am going to use my Gina Magique to put under it, so my presser foot is now horizontal. Otherwise you will not have good stitches. Always make sure your presser foot is horizontal. If you do it with your Gina Magique, your hum jumper, with some scrap fabric, some whatever, your presser foot needs to be horizontal. I'm sewing here with a very distinctive thread, but that's solely for the video. I would never ever do this in real life. And I'm also using my super universal needle. I do not invent that name. These are the needles, super universal. I'm pretty sure that for a second you thought I was making the things up. That's already our square. Now the cross. I'm sewing from there to there in a diagonal line. If I do this in black thread, then you would not see all the mistakes I was making now. I can now only tell you, if you stitch your strap like this, it is not going to come loose any point. This is the way you use when you don't use rivets. I prefer rivets because I like rivets, but this is a very secure way to attach your straps to a vertical ring. Clip all the threads. Your bag is ready. You made your own bag.